Welcome back to the Strength and Speed Podcast. I'm your host, Conquer the Gauntlet Pro, Evan Perperis. I don't have Brent on the line with me, but I do have another Conquer the Gauntlet Pro. Actually, I have two, so get ready for another all Conquer the Gauntlet Pro Team episode. Joining me as my co-host, I have Lisa Nondorf. Lisa, welcome back to the show.
Yay, excited to be back.
You may remember Lisa from the episode we did with her a couple months ago where we talked about her professional high diving career and her transition into OCR and her dominant Masters performance at Conquer the Gauntlet and other race series. So, Lisa, welcome back.
Yes, happy.
And before we introduce our other guests, we're going to do a quick word from our sponsors. This episode is being brought to you by RecBag. If you're not familiar with RecBag, I'm not sure where you've been in the OCR world, right?
You need to get familiar with RecBag. If you're not familiar with RecBag, that doesn't even make sense.
So if you've been to OCR World Championships or North American World Championships, or if you went to Battle Frog, or if you go to Terrain Race, pretty much you go to almost any series of OCR, you'll see RecBag on the course. They're the weighted bags that have essentially synthetic beads on the inside instead of sand, so it makes them more durable. I've never seen a RecBag rip, ever.
No. I throw mine around like a crazy person because I tend to get really mad because I don't like carries. So mine gets thrown through the gym. But it's great because I do I can do a lot of CrossFit stuff with them. So actually the CrossFit programming I use, it actually requires me to have a RecBag. So it'll physically say you need to do cleans with a RecBag or you need to go do a run with a RecBag. So it's the greatest tool ever. So I use it across a lot of disciplines, not just OCR.
And speaking of RecBag, I actually, about a year ago, picked up a pair of the Rec Ribs. So they're essentially these straps that go along the center of the RecBag, and it allows for additional handles. Do you have that, Lisa?
Oh, that's cool. I don't have that. I need that.
Yeah,
I'll have to look into that.
They're pretty sweet, and it allows you to do a couple more exercises, like bent over rows and stuff like that. And, when getting it onto your shoulder, it makes it a little bit easier. So. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, my newest trick, I don't know if you saw it, was pull-ups with my RecBag. So that was pretty fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
So be on the lookout for.
So great.
Be on the lookout on Mudrun Guide. I have a review coming out about the Rec Ribs that's going to be publishing. I'm not sure if it'll be before or after this episode, but it's coming out. So check that out. And then if you want your own RecBag or your own Rec-accessories, what they call their accessories for the RecBag, you can use the code CTGProTeam10 for 10% off your order.
Yeah, they're awesome, so you need to get one.
All right, now enough of that. Let's introduce our guest. Our guest today is Doug Snyder, the newest member of the Conquer the Gauntlet Pro Team. He's had a dominant year as a Masters CTG athlete. I believe he's undefeated this year, and I know won at least one last year or a couple last year. So,
yes.
Doug, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And then on top of that, Doug and Lisa know each other pretty well. So how do you guys know each other?
We actually met on a podium at Conquer the Gauntlet Atlanta. So, which is pretty crazy. That was his first Conquer the Gauntlet, and it was a race that I wasn't even planning on going to, and Jay Flores convinced me to come. So we both, we met on top of the podium and then just developed a friendship, and it's developed further since then, and so now I guess we are now currently dating. So we've been doing so for about a year. So
awesome.
Long distance, yeah. So we know each other pretty well.
Yes.
So we want to get into a bunch of questions about what it's like to date another high-level OCR athlete, and then also what it's like to have a long-term relationship. But before we get to that, you two recently got back from the OCR World Championships in London, which was also just announced as of recording this as of today, that it will return to the same location October 13th of 2019. So we're going to spend most of the episode talking about OCR World Championships and what that was like. So to give everyone a baseline, what other championships have you been to? We're talking NORAM, USOCRC, and OCRWC. Give me both of you.
Okay.
I did the USOCR in Texas last year, and I did the OCR World Championships 2 years ago in Canada, and I've also been in the Battle Frogs 1 championship race.
Did you go to the World Championships in Ohio as well, the year prior?
No.
Oh, I thought you did. Okay. All right. So I did the USA Championships that was in Texas as well, and then I did NORAMs this year, and then I've done both years of OCR Worlds when they were in Canada.
But you have not done the Ohio venue.
No, I wasn't even doing OCR yet at that time. Well, I had just started OCR when they were in Ohio. That was my first year into the sport, so I didn't even know it existed.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was a newbie.
So I think most of our listeners have at least been to one of the similar races, either Canada or Stratton, Vermont for the NORAM or the USOCRC. So I guess use a lot of comparisons when we talk through this. So what was it like going over to London to different continent and seeing the OCR scene there at a world championship level?
You want to take it, Doug, or you want me to say something?
Yeah. It was a little bit of a culture shock. I mean, I have never traveled overseas, for one thing. So what I was trying to figure out before I even left was based on other people's experience or what I've read on the internet. I think the very first thing was just dealing with the time change, the jet lag part of it. And of course, getting over there and like communicating and immediately jumping into a rental car that had the steering wheel on the opposite side and immediately trying to tell myself I have to stay on the opposite side of the road when I drive, as well as shift the gear shift with my opposite hand.
Oh, did you do manual too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a rule. I only do one. I can do manual and drive on the correct side of the road, or I can do left side drive and drive automatic. Like, I refuse to do both.
The bad thing, his evil girlfriend did the car rental, and I didn't care because I wasn't driving the car.
Yeah, she said, we'll just take the cheapest available option.
No, you got to get the automatic. You got to get the automatic. Personally, I think.
We're good now.
Oh, I had fun with it once I got the hang of it.
Yeah, you did very well. We didn't pop any tires, so I'm hearing that that's like a huge feat for the weekend. That everyone was popping tires, so everybody was late getting to registration because they were stuck in the middle of nowhere with a popped tire, and they don't put spare tires in these cars.
Yeah,
so you would figure out how to go get a tire. But,
right. Nobody told me that at the beginning, that, hey, you don't have a spare tire, so I guess I was extra lucky.
Yeah. So that was our first experience over there. I thought I was actually super impressed with the amount of other countries. It just felt more international. I guess that being in Canada, and I'm assuming that also in Ohio, like the dominant was Canadians, Americans, those two countries. And going over there, we were still extremely well represented. The United States, I can say that. Like, I was very surprised how many people from the U.S. that I actually knew. But I just felt like all the other countries seemed very well represented. So just seeing the amount of international that was there was really, really impressive. And then keep going back, and it's my third year in a row, and so it's the friends that you still make that you only see once a year at Worlds. So that was pretty cool to come back onto that venue, and it still felt like a world championship level race, and it actually felt a little bit more because you hate to say for the first time you felt outnumbered, speaking English. So it was pretty cool.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the race was held on the site of Nuclear Race's essentially permanent facility out there in England, just outside of London. So,
Right.
Which is mostly flat, and I heard it had a ton of mud. So, give me a compare and contrast with the terrain, the elevation changes in the mud compared to like NORAM or Blue Mountain, Canada?
I don't know if Doug has pulled his stuff down. I haven't pulled my stuff from my watch down yet. I'm gonna assume the elevation change was like non-existent. I didn't feel like there was many hills, but the mud. Like, I don't know that I've ever run a race with that much mud, in all honesty.
Right.
So I think the last time I ran a race with a ton of mud was like Spartan Chicago one year. It was really bad. I know Spartan Chicago this year was bad. I'm probably going to say it was similar to that.
Gotcha.
And I just said I can't imagine what the venue would have been like if it would have been raining.
Ooh.
Because it was dry. Yeah. Like, they hadn't had rain, so it was dry in their comparison. But, normally when I run a race, there's times that I'm like, okay, I'm done climbing walls. Like, I'm over a wall. Can we stop having inverted wall or 8-foot wall, 6-foot wall? In this race, I was done with the mud mounds. I'm done. Can I just not climb into mud again? So.
Now, with so much mud on the course, one of the problems with that is it makes the obstacles a lot harder if you don't manage it. Especially for the grip strength obstacles, especially for the later waves in the day. Like, I know when I used to run Battle Frog Extreme, the first 1 or 2 laps, most of the obstacles would be easy for me, and then even sometimes something like a rope climb, like I remember doing Chicago, and the rope was just, like, completely slick with mud. It was just a complete mess.
That rope climb, because I was at that same race as you, that was the exact same rope feeling when you did the slip wall at the finish line. Doug, you went out at what? You went out at 1 p.m. or later?
I think 1:15.
Yeah, we were the last 2 waves out. So
Yeah.
Doug went out at 1:15, and then I went out at 1:30. So we were the last 2 waves. They sent the Masters men 45 and up. The 40-year-olds had already gone out. But then the last wave was all Masters females. So the 40 and up females. And then Journeymen came out behind us. And the course, I don't know how you felt, Doug, but I just felt it was destroyed by the time we went. It was pretty muddy.
Yeah, it was a big difference, from running the short course on Friday than getting out there Saturday afternoon and seeing how much more tore up it was. But the mud had been ground into a lot of the grip strength kind of obstacles.
Yeah.
Notably, Skull Valley, I know a lot of people had trouble with that, and I noticed that the dirt had just been ground into where it was a nice textured grip the day before. It just turned into like a smooth coating of dirt just packed onto it.
Right. So it was, it definitely played a factor, I think, in a lot of things. And I personally can say for me, I wasn't prepared. I don't run, traditionally that type of course where it's just a lot of mud. And I can say that I completely was not prepared for this course. It's something that I'll be more prepared for next year. Knowing that it's coming, and I'll keep my fingers crossed that it doesn't really rain, because otherwise I don't even know that there's a way I can prepare for that much mud. So I think we were laughing, and there was an English guy, and I remember talking to him and saying, "Oh my God, you're an island. How did you get this much mud?" And they started laughing, and he said, "Oh, it's been worse. Like, this is actually really clean." So, and then even talking to some of the people there, and they said that definitely, like, the European countries had a huge benefit because they're used to this type of race. And I think in the U.S., we've kind of gone away from the amount of mud. Like if you think of NORAMs,
right.
We can have water or mud. Worlds the last two years was dry. Yep. Even looking back to USA OCR, it had like minimal. I don't think there was mud. I think we got wet, but minimally. So I think that it was just, for me, it was a little bit on the, whoa, okay, I forgot what this feels like. Like, I'm used to a ski slope, and it was a complete polar opposite. So.
Yeah, now that you mention it, that's one of the things that makes me even more impressed with Jonathan Albon's performance, right? Like, he wins on the mountain courses, he wins on the flat course, he wins on the muddy courses, right? Like, his range is just so huge. And, I was watching the video. Someone actually put their phone towards the television when they showed the actual broadcast of the show, and like,
Yeah.
I mean, he looks like effortless going through obstacles, and there's like a pack of guys behind him that look like they're just like out of control trying to keep up with him. It's very impressive. So
Well, and Lindsay too. I mean, Lindsay's in the same boat. She took third at the short course.
right,
But she wasn't dominating. Like we watched. I mean, you know, we don't go out till 1:30, so we're still laying in the hotel room watching the elites go out and the pro wave go out. And you know, Lindsay was not. I mean, what was she, top 5 for most of the race? And then just came through. I was like, what happened on the back half of the course that Lindsay just dominated everyone? You know, because she came back. So I was, in my head, I kept running the race going, okay, what obstacles are on the back half of this course that would have slowed people down enough to let Lindsay surpass? Because to me, she's in the same boat. She's dominant on, so far, every course you put her on.
yeah.
So
you said you weren't prepared for the mud, but you're going to try to be better prepared next year. Is there anything specific changes you're going to try to make to your training to be better prepared, or are you just mentally knowing what's coming?
I think mentally it wasn't, like, mentally I wasn't prepared. And I wasn't prepared as far as the cold. You know, you start the race and you assume that, you know, you're not going to be cold, but when you're that muddy, you don't realize that that mud is like a coolant. And so I said I was shivering. I was one of those fun people that got stuck at Skull Valley for longer than I ever want to talk about. But just standing there, I mean, I was shivering. I was really, really cold. And I said I had been cold since almost the start of the race. Once I got wet, I couldn't warm up. So even with the running and the everything, so it just, you know, I think that training my body a little bit more, even though I live in the north, I didn't train very well in the cold, and I think needing to do that a little bit more with the realization that I'm going to be wet and I need to learn how to adapt to that, the cold and the wet, and then mentally prepare that it's not going to just be what we're used to, you know, where we don't get wet, where there's not really any mud. You finish the finish line, you might be dirty, but you're not, you know, caked full of mud. So
Gotcha. Now I know Doug's very good on obstacles, right? Like you every CTG you showed up to this year, you kept your band, which was really impressive because some of them were super hard, and you swept all the masters for CTG. Did any of the obstacles give you trouble at OCR World Championships?
No.
True.
I mean, the Stairway to Heaven had a wider gap at the top between the two highest steps. You know, and just going off muscle memory, when I got to that point, that took some concentration to make that move, to come down the downside of it. But other than that, it all felt really comfortable.
Gotcha. Now, we said in your bio you're a Masters athlete, but you're not like 40 or 41. You're 49.
That's what I hear.
I remind him daily.
Yeah, I don't like to admit it, but Lisa's trying to break me of that.
So how have you maintained, or how have you improved your grip strength and body weight, movement strength over the last couple of years to keep it such a high level where you're not only dominating the Masters athletes, but like at Tulsa, I think you came in what, 5th or 4th?
Yeah.
For Conquer the Gauntlet. So yeah, how have you been doing that, and any sort of changes you've made to your training in the last decade?
Oh my goodness. Well, let's just start in the last 2 years. The most recent change was getting more into the Ninja Warrior type gym training. That's gotten more popular, and I really like watching that show, and sometimes I'd watch reruns even, and just I would recreate some of those obstacles at home and practice on it. And then we finally got a ninja gym, NOLA Muscle Park in New Orleans, and whenever I get a chance I'd go over there, but it's an hour and a half away, and that's the closest thing I have for a real ninja gym. So that helped a whole lot with grip strength and proprioception, which is, being conscious of where you are in the air, your body moving fast. And I would say then probably 5 to 6 years ago, my son, who was a young teenager at that time, started getting into rock climbing. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, I was like, this is a great way, for a father-son connection. And I jumped into that with him, and I loved it. I mean, I was terrified of it at first, just getting up to a certain height and trusting nothing but a rope. But then my grip strength improved quite a bit from that, too, as well as just more of a mental calmness under an extreme pressure of the fear of falling, So yeah, those two things, rock climbing and ninja gym work, has helped my grip strength maintain and actually improve.
I'm going to butt in because nobody else has been to Doug's house. So let's just have this discussion about Doug's house. Doug's living room is a rock wall. He's got hanging rings from the living room. There's like monkey bars with stuff hanging off of them. Outside, he's got a pegboard. There's a rig outside. He has another makeshift rig that sometimes is in the backyard, sometimes is not. So even though there's not, for him, because he doesn't have a ninja gym right next door, his house is a big, huge playground. And he keeps creating stuff. Like, he's super inventive with obstacles, so he keeps creating stuff and throwing it up there, and he's like, oh, I wonder if I can do this. So I just kind of always go, oh my God, please just don't get hurt. But he's an amazing rock climber. So I always am impressed, and we'll go to a ninja gym, and I get so frustrated with him because he'll tell me, oh, I've never tried this before, let me try it, and like does it easily. So I'm like, really? Like, never mind. Like, and I just have to walk away. Like, everything, like we talk about things coming natural, but he works, like, he's humble enough to not admit that he works super hard at everything. And, so he'll say, oh, I rock climb a little and all this, but his house is just devoted to that, and he's doing it every single day. So.
Yeah, it's just doing a little bit every day, like 5 minutes, like 2 rig passes every day, to me is a stronger training tool than, once a week, like on a Saturday, spending an hour till your hands are just burned out. Like, if you just maintain just that certain baseline, like it comes really easy.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, you're creating a muscle memory. You're creating a pathway in your brain and through your muscles of what it feels like to grab and hang from your hands and to use different grips and holds and, swing across the rings and various holds that way. So.
Right.
Gotcha. What about your running background? Any endurance running background or anything like that?
Not really endurance. I started running. When I very first started running, it was probably 20 years ago. I did not run in school. I didn't do any organized sports in school at all. But then when I got to where I was working on my master's degree, I realized, hey, I'm getting stuck behind a desk and hacking at a computer for hours and hours. I need to get up and move, or my joints just were aching and everything. So I started running like 15 minutes every other day, and I didn't care how far I went. I just ran a little bit, and I turned that into a strong habit and kept that up for maybe 2 or 3 years. And then a friend of mine at the gym noticed the numbers on the treadmill, and he said, have you ever run a race? And I was like, no. He said, you should try a 5K. And I barely even understood what he was talking about. So he was like, well, there's this race coming up in the local town here, and I went and did it and placed in, maybe top 10 or something. And then I realized, oh, okay, I guess I'm doing all right with my run speed. So then I started paying attention to distance and started running every 5K that was around here for several years. And then up till about, up until I started OCR racing, and then I started really paying attention to going to higher distances. But I don't generally run anything that's farther than a half marathon distance.
Gotcha. I love that story because it's built upon persistence, and I'm a huge fan of just staying consistent and persistent over a long period of time, and you'll see the results that I think people are always trying to find shortcuts to, when in reality it's just practice. You just got to practice a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, let's get back to OCR WC. So there was the 3K and the 15K. You know, I know the 3K had around 25 obstacles, and the 15K had about like 100. So did you feel the 100 was excessive, or was it fun, or kind of give me your opinion on the obstacle density and obstacle difficulty?
I thought for me, the 3K was fast. I don't know, we talk about any obstacles going to slow you down. I don't think there was any obstacles in the 3K going to slow you down. And the same would go with the 15K. I just think that it was just the amount of obstacles that was there. But for me, like I said, the ones that stick out the most is the mud. Like, I just felt like it was constantly, I was going through, I made the joke afterwards that I think a quarter of the obstacles were mud mounds. I know that they took out one of the Caterpillar came out of the race. Can
you describe that for everyone?
That's the one. It had two pipes, and your hands went on one pipe and your feet went on the other pipe, and you were hanging upside down, and you kind of had to shimmy these two pipes down, like the two like long pipes. And I guess they didn't make enough of the hand and foot pipe. So people were racing, and they would get to the obstacle, but then there was a guaranteed backup because there wasn't enough, it'd be like Skitch not having enough of the grips. So I think they only made enough for like 8 people to go on it. So it was definitely had a huge backup. And so I know that they took it out early on. So there was controversy a little bit over it because I think they took it out in mid-heat of an age group. So I know, Doug, was it in for you?
No, I never got to try it.
Yeah. See, I think they had already taken it out because on the short course, again, I think we were the last 2 waves to go out before the pros went out. And they had already taken it out before we went. So we didn't get to get on it at all. And then
from the comments I read online, it sounded like they took it out after the first. It sounded like they took it out at the end of an age group after the first males went through. That's what I got from the comments. I could be wrong, but
no, you could be right. Like, I just know that some people were like, "Well, it wasn't fair that we got there and everyone, we were waiting, and then they let the people catch us. So how are they going to compare times?" And I mean, you're not going. It sounds callous, but you're not in a podium contention. I get you're upset, but run fast. You had a break, kind of idea. So, but and there's no right way or wrong way to do things. It's hard. So I wouldn't want to have to make that decision because you're not going to make anyone happy at that moment. So, but the 100 obstacles, I didn't feel like it was 100 obstacles. Doug, I don't know how you felt.
I didn't feel like it was 100 either. I mean, it all had a good flow. Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting where they bunched obstacles up where there was like 30 feet between a couple of obstacles, but it didn't create like a complete muscle failure or anything.
Yeah.
And I know like the Rec Bag series, they said they named it a couple different things, but it just kind of was one thing after another. It wasn't like you put it down, did something else, and then picked it back up and did something else.
Right.
So in that way, I mean, maybe it didn't feel like 100 because they were combined a little bit.
Right.
And of course, calling a mud pit a name, I guess that's an obstacle.
Yeah, I even think like the bridge, we had, there was some fun obstacles definitely, because initially Doug wasn't signed up for the 15K. And I kind of, when I found out there was 100 obstacles, I kind of strong-armed him and said, it's 100 obstacles. Like, you need to, like, we're going. You need to do 100 obstacles. And, and some of them were fun. Like, they had a zip line, and then their big, huge slide. you know. And I think the bridge that we had to run across to get the zip line tool, I think they called that an obstacle as well, and it's literally just running across a bridge. So I think that helped with not feeling it. But I know it's a lot of fatigue, and I don't think you realize how much fatigue actually sets in because it's not the miles of running in between obstacles. They definitely were bunched pretty well together, and there were some really creative ones, that's for sure.
Yes. Oh yeah, I love the creativity, and like when I'm running, sometimes I'm like paying attention to how the obstacle is built and like recording that in my memory because I want to go home and try something different.
So for those of us that have been to NORAM or the other adventure events, name a bunch of the obstacles that you were familiar with from the previous events, and then name some that are new that people wouldn't be familiar with and kind of describe them.
Familiar, Stairway to Heaven. The big difference at Stairway to Heaven was the gap. I actually had to kip swing to get across. I couldn't just, like I do at CTG, where I'm kind of in a dead hang and then I just reach. I couldn't reach. So I actually had to build swing to reach across. So it was a pretty decent gap. Let's see. Urban Sky was there. It was the exact same setup as NORAM's.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Skull Valley, right?
Yeah, Skull Valley was the exact same setup as NORAM's as well, and I think Worlds the year before, where it was swing up. So we had a ring, I think, and then you had a foot ring, and you had to swing up to get to Skull Valley, and then you had the monkey bar, the twisty, monkey bar sections between. And then the Force 5 rig was the exact same as NORAM's as well. So that was a benefit to doing both. Doug?
How about a couple different ones?
Okay.
Well, I mean, they modified Skitch. I know there was a lot of talk about that, but they took out that gap where the two horizontal pipes were separate. They made it one continuous pipe with just chain hanging down in the middle, so you still had to make a transition around it, but you didn't have that pinch point anymore.
Like if you were at NORAM's, the pipes had two big, huge balls at the end of them, and so that's where people were smashing their fingers. They also added like a plate to the bottom of, it was a small plate, but to the bottom of the nunchucks. So if your hand slid down, it would hit the plate. Now, I mean, you still.
I like it without it personally.
Yeah, exactly. You still had to have decent grip. I mean, you couldn't just rest your hand on that plate, I don't think. But yeah, they did have a little plate underneath it that would kind of catch your hand. So that got modified that way between NORAM's and Worlds. They actually used the metal bar with the big ball for the low rig. So the low rig was completely different. I know in the past we had done, Green Beret?
We did a platinum. We did a low rig for platinum rig in Canada, and then we did the Green Beret Challenge low rig at NORAM this past year.
It was completely different. It was basically the pipes from Skitch at NORAM's that you had to shimmy across, and then there was a ring in between them. And so I just used the ring to swing me to the next pipe and then transitioned over.
Oh, interesting.
So it was kind of like Pipe Dreams, but you had to use your feet on the pipe.
It's like low pipe dreams.
That's exactly right. You couldn't just use your hands. So, but you were, you wrapped your feet around, so it was kind of like a rope traverse, but it was a pipe traverse with a ring in the middle to get you to the next pipe. So I laughed because I said that was a lot sketchier than I expected it to be, because the whole thing shook. So it was pretty funny. I remember being like, well, that was more, sometimes you get off obstacles and you're like, well, I didn't expect it to be that sketchy, but, okay, I finished. So, and then there was a long rope traverse.
Yes.
I remember that. It was, I remember thinking, wow, this is probably the second longest rope traverse I've ever done.
Yeah,
so.
and and it was over a big pond with kind of steep banks, so the time cost for falling off of that was pretty serious.
Yeah, because you had to touch both sides, and now people were just crossing the bank and then dropping off, and they would have to redo it because you actually had to touch end to end. So, yeah, you had to touch the frame on the other side, which meant you were going back uphill.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, and when I got there, they were pretty wet. There was a lot of people swimming in the water, so they were pretty gross.
Now, we said the venue was the site of nuclear races, so what nuclear-specific obstacles were there that, Americans would not be familiar with?
The one that sticks out in my mind, first off, is the one they called Kingfisher, which was an arched up monkey bar, but it ended just sticking out into space. There wasn't a support at the far end of it, and it was over water, so you had to work your way up the monkey bar and then down a little bit and drop off of it carefully onto a narrow platform that was in the water. I thought that was...
What made it hard, it bounced because there was no, just imagine a cane. So it was a monkey bar that looked like a cane, and so it actually bounced. So, and we laughed when we went to Italy afterwards, and we actually saw the exact same thing on a playground. I was like, oh, that's where they got it from.
Right.
So, but yeah, that one was unique. Trying to think. It was just adaptations to a lot of the stuff we already do. Like they had Lagaffe, but it was really different than the Lagaffe we've done.
Yeah, I saw a video of it. It had a ladder as the third pipe, and it had looks like it had some bigger footholds.
Yeah, it was, we were thinking that, the first time you get on it, I was thinking that the piping would be heavier, so harder to pull. And so it wasn't. It actually pulled pretty easy. So that wasn't too bad. The rings. Do you remember those rings, Doug, that you had to go through? It was like a series of rings that they just came. It felt like you were in the circus, and you had to go through, all of these rings. And they were floating over water, and you couldn't touch the water at all, but they weren't excessively high over the water. It would have been really easy to hit the water. And I couldn't figure out, a smooth way to go through them at all. I just remember going, well, that's just not comfortable. But other people were flying through them. So I'm just going to assume that I just muscled my way through that and didn't use any technique at all. So.
Yeah, I guess a way to describe that is a series of 10 or 12 hula hoops made out of metal that were hanging above the water, so you had to go through the hula hoops, but they were all hanging loose, so they were just incredibly awkward and swinging every which way. I wish I could remember the name of that.
Yeah, I don't know. And then
I know there's also a big slide, right? That looked pretty fun.
It was fun. The water was cold, but the slide was fun. So, and I keep looking to see if there's pictures, but I'm like, there's no way I'm going to find my picture on this slide because there's bodies flying everywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember what lane I went to, so I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to find it because you would just go flying off this slide. So,
just today I saw some of the pictures from that, and they are so hilarious. 6 people all go down at the same time, and every body is in a completely different position midair.
It was fun. I can say that if I hadn't done the 15K, I would have been sad because the zip line was actually a lot of fun. The slide was a lot of fun. There was a lot of obstacles that you wouldn't have done, if you had just done the 3K, and some of them are definitely unique. And so it was pretty cool to go overseas and, do something that was outside of the box for us. Even though they're similar to what we do here, they just felt a little bit tweaked. It was a little bit different. So, so it was pretty cool.
Cool. Well, sounds like a great experience for those listeners that are planning on heading there next year. So your recommendation is to do all 3 or do at least the 15K in the team? What's your recommendation here?
I would do all 3. Definitely do all three. I mean, unless you are a little bit more novice and but then I would say try the 15K because, again, it's a lot of obstacles, but there's only specific obstacles that are going to take your band. That slide, unless you have a fear of water, but they give you life vests if you want them. So the slide isn't going to take a band, it's just more for fun. And things like that. So I can say that in the 15K in comparison to the 3K, Doug, what do you think? There wasn't many obstacles besides maybe Stairway that would have taken a band that wouldn't take your band in the 3K. Thoughts?
Right. I'm trying to think. Yeah, because they didn't have Skull Valley in the 3K.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, did we? Okay.
Yeah, we had Skull Valley. In 3K.
It was so easy, Doug can't even remember.
I know.
Right.
I know it was there because one day I spent an hour on it, and the other day I went through like it was nothing. So
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I know it was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they also have more carries, I think, than we've ever done at Worlds or NORAMs. We did a lot of carries. So, and a lot of like heavy drags and things like that. We had be prepared to carry a bomb.
I saw that.
A bomb. And I don't
was
know
that
if
like
it
a
had,
slosh
like,
pipe?
It felt like a slosh pipe, so I don't know if there was like a concrete ball in it. It was freakishly heavy. You get up to it and you think it's going to be like a rec bag heavy. No. It was I think it was heavier than the rec bag.
And
if it wasn't heavier, it was just more awkward to carry, so it felt heavier. So.
Gotcha.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And not being allowed to put it on your shoulder made it just...
You had the farmer carry it.
It burned your grip strength just, with that grip of a wide object like that. Yeah. That was very unpopular.
I was over bombs. I was done with them. Because we also had to hoist it out of the water. So, and then
I saw the video of that.
Yeah. So you had to hoist it out of the water, had to touch your feet, and then you had to control it to go back into the water. So that was because we had that I had that in all three races. So I said I'm done with bombs. I'm good. So I'll take my rec bag back now. Thank you. So.
Now I wasn't there, so I was looking at a lot of the coverage online and the Facebook groups. And I felt like this year, compared to other years, there was a lot of posts, people complaining about cheating. Did you see any of that, or what was kind of your opinion on that?
I didn't witness any cheating. I don't know. I don't know that you're ever going to stop everyone from cheating. I mean, it's just par for the course. You have certain people that race that are always going to look for the, in the rule book. I mean, because if I look back at Worlds last year, I remember getting very frustrated because the rec bag carry, people were sliding on the rec bag down the hill. And so it was kind of destroying the rec bag course, and so I kept falling, and they're just sliding past me. And I remember getting frustrated because at that point I was still in podium contention, and I was like, I can't even walk. And they're like, well, in the start line they said it just has to be arm's length away, and I still have my hand on it while I'm sliding. And to me, I was like, but the name says rec bag carry.
Yeah. It's not against the written rule. It's against the spirit of the rules.
That's exactly
in that
it.
sense.
And so you're always going to find people that are going to look for, it says my feet can't be on it, but it doesn't say my knees can't, And I don't know that you're ever going to be able to stop all of that, in all honesty. And then asking one judge or two judges to catch everything is going to be very difficult.
Right.
And I know, I think it's been pretty consistent that people have, hid their bands and things like that. I just think that it's getting noticed more. I don't know that it's occurring more, but I think it's getting noticed more, if that makes sense. But I didn't see any of it, but I'm also oblivious, so.
I've raced in a couple different countries, both running races and OCR and some other different things. And sometimes, I'm not going to start calling out countries that I've seen, but sometimes I feel like it's a cultural difference. we have a certain set of values in America, and generally trying to do what's right and win. And other people, like I've been to other countries where the attitude is more like win at all costs,
Right.
and kind of be damned of whatever else happens.
Right.
Do you think any of that was maybe culturally? I'm not like trying to point out a country or a region, but like.
And I also think that it depends on the level, because in certain countries, and I can say, like, I've been to Puerto Rico. I love Puerto Rico. I support Puerto Rico. But we had a long discussion because we were there. The girls were using the A-frame to climb the wall. And, and so Jay and I talked, and I said, you need to let them know that in the U.S., that's not going to be allowed. You know what I mean? So I don't even know that it's a cultural difference as much as if in their country it's kind of like, oh, well, that's how we do that obstacle. And then they come over here. They don't know any difference.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And so I think, like, the Puerto Ricans have the benefit that Jay will say, like, listen, here's the rules. But the other countries, do they really have somebody that's a spokesperson saying, like, hey, when you go to the rigs, don't grab the chain. When you go to this, don't do that, I don't know. So that's my only thought. But I tend to like to believe the best of people, mostly.
Yeah.
So.
And you also mentioned the number of essentially foreign competitors, maybe non-English speaking. Mm-hmm. So theoretically, language could play a part in that too. Correct. Just maybe not understanding all the rules, or maybe if you want to go the thinking more poorly of people's opinion or people's personal judgment, they may have used language as a means to, claim ignorance.
Right.
So.
Right. That's exactly it. And I always say, you're not going to stop the cheaters, so you just have to get stronger to be able to beat the cheaters. That's all.
Yeah, that's.
Because I can't control what somebody else is going to do. If they're going to cheat, they're going to cheat. And if they get caught, they get caught. If not, I just kind of have to be stronger than somebody if they do choose to cheat. And my standards, like, I'm probably the excessive other way, Like, I hold myself to a huge standard of I have to be able to sleep with myself at night, so.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So in 2015 and 2016, I felt like I saw several people cheat at several different races, maybe like 3 or 4 times a year. Mm-hmm. And I was getting like so pissed, and then I was like, well, like, how do you stop it? And exactly what you said, I was like, well, I'll just be better than them. Like, I'll just be so far in front that they don't have a chance to. It doesn't matter if they cheat, because I'm already too fast and I'm already too smooth at the obstacles.
Right.
So that's what I used that to drive some of my training a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. I feel like I don't see cheating as much. I don't, but
right.
Again, it's perception.
Well,
largely,
and I think,
so.
yeah, and that's why I said I think for me, and I don't know, like for Doug, but I don't look at people for cheating. Like, I worry about my race. I'm not going to worry about somebody else's race, because again, the only thing I can control is my race. I can't control how they race. So when people say, did you see anyone cheating or anything, I mean, I wasn't looking. So I'm more focused on what I'm doing.
It's hard to notice for sure, and especially you don't see the same person twice generally.
Right.
So overall, how do you think Adrian and Venturi and OCRWC did? Would you say better than previous years, the same as previous years, a little bit worse? What's the general consensus? Or just different?
I think that it was a little bit better. Like I said, I did Canada 2 years ago. I'm not as good at the steep hill climbing because I live in the flatlands on the coast. So this race was more of my power zone. And I'm also used to a little bit nastier mud being on the coast. We've got some bayou swamps around here that it's pretty easy to get stuck in. And I love the idea that it's like a flat 100 obstacles. Like, that's the record number or something. And so I feel like that was a good benchmark in my running career to do that 15K portion at least.
And
Lisa?
I'm the opposite. I didn't like it as much. But I don't like, I always make the jokes, like when I talk to people about OCR, and their first thing to me is, oh, I don't want to get all muddy. And my response is, oh, I don't want to get muddy either. My goal is to never be muddy. You know, in my opinion, like in my thoughts, I always think, well, the only time I'm going to get muddy is if I fall off an obstacle and fall in the water, I'm going to get muddy. So if you just stay on the obstacles, you don't get muddy. And that was definitely not this race. So for me, it was more of a personal preference, that I just didn't feel like, I didn't like the race as much. But again, that's my personal preference of the style of racing I like. So I don't think it bears anything onto the job that Adrian and Rachel Ann and they did an amazing job. I think the other thing they had working against them is that Blue Mountain, the venue itself, like the restaurants were right there, the hotels were right there, everything was within walking distance, so you really felt the village feel, and I didn't know anything different. Like I didn't know the Ohio races where you didn't have that. It was a venue, you know, and so you go to the venue, you race, you leave the venue, and so for me, I missed that component of oh, well, afterwards we all hang out and we all, you know, it was kind of like everyone went their separate ways and you didn't see anyone except for when you went back to the race the next day. So, you know, so I think I missed that component of it. But again, you know, it's a venue and you're not going to get, hey, look, we have 50 hotels and within walking distance and, you know, all that. So yeah, I missed that part of it. But like I said, I still don't think that puts anything against. They did a phenomenal job and it still felt like Worlds. So
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. I hear you. Like, I like the US OCRC, the Texas course. Mm-hmm. Like, as a course, I like that one better. But I thought the experience at NORAM this year was a better experience. You know,
Correct.
The village wasn't as big as Blue Mountain, but they still had a village at the base. It just, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the company did a smoother job, basically running everything
right.
this year compared to US OCRC. So
yeah, I think
Gotcha.
that it being its first year overseas, it had its hiccups. But I think that the good thing about them is that they realize it had its. They're not saying, you know, they realize it had its hiccups, and they've already announced how things will change in the future. So.
Yeah, they just put out an article on Mud Run Guide today announcing, was it like 7 or 9 changes?
Yeah,
coming?
like 7 changes, and you know, some of them, you know, it's smart. Like registration was. I've never stood in registration that long. How long do you think we were there?
Probably 2 hours.
Yeah, 2 hours.
Gotcha.
To get packets and everything. So, you know, we were definitely like, whoa. So, but yeah.
Okay, and then real quick, because I want to talk about a couple of things, touch on the team race real quick. Was there anything very unique about that, or was it still kind of the standard speed leg, strength leg, technical leg team over the wall?
It was the same. The biggest difference was we had more team obstacles. So, when technically was done, you know, normally you go straight to the wall, you go over the wall, you're done. They added in it was like these big Atlas stones, and you felt like you were putting them on a gurney, and then you had to walk
yeah, I
around.
saw that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like one person's on the front of the gurney, one person on the back, or the stretcher, one person on the front of one person on the back of the stretcher, and there's like one person trying to balance them, make sure they don't roll off.
Correct. And so that got added in, and then there was like a rope climb. Doug, maybe you can explain it better than me.
Yeah, it was just a low rope climb, but it kind of had 2 sections of framing overhead, so the team all had to use the same rope, so you had to wait for your teammates to go up and over this framing, but you had to kind of grab the first part of the frame and then scramble up another 2 feet and then go over the top and then come back down the rope. That was just, yeah, it was just a momentum breaker, and it took a minute for everyone to get up and down the same rope.
Yeah. And then I felt bad for Matt because we had a pretty decent run. And we all know I can't run fast. And then Doug had just come off of technique. So, you know, where you normally tag out and the person that's tagging out is like, and I'm done. You know, I just gave everything. The poor technique person, like, did their whole section, and they didn't get a recovery. They just had to keep going. And so, you know, like, I kept, because I've always done technique. In this race, I did strength. And so I just told Doug, I said, just remember your race isn't done at the tag. Like, your race actually keeps going. So
Right.
don't go to failure at the tag, because then it's just going to stink. So, and I said it was very different doing the team race because I didn't get off the course until like 5:30, 6 o'clock. I don't think we left the venue the night before the team race until like 8 p.m. by the time we showered and everything. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I was just here 12 hours ago. And so I think we both were pretty exhausted, as opposed to running in the morning and then you get the whole day to recover. It was like
Gotcha.
sleep, get up, and go. And for us, it's our only morning race. So everything else had been at like 11, 12, 1. And then all of a sudden we're racing at 9 a.m. So Matt did an awesome job. And he did an amazing job on the speed leg too. So I was super impressed. So
Definitely.
but
Now, I noticed, I saw several people comment about the obstacle completion rate, and some people put up graphs, basically that it was lower than previous years. Did you feel like it was too hard, or do people just need to train harder, or what's kind of your opinion on the obstacle
I don't
difficulty?
know that it was too hard. Like I said, I got hung. I mean, I did finish the course with a band, but I got hung, and it's the first year I've ever gotten stuck. But I think it was more of a situational, and if you look at, granted, as you look at the results, it's the older crowd goes later, tends to be, and the completion rate gets lower. But I also think that the temperature and the weather and just the course destruction has a big factor that plays into that. I think the course itself sometimes gets harder later.
Absolutely.
And so
Like we talked about with BFX,
Yeah.
Some of the later laps it was just like a complete mess. I remember
Yeah.
being just shocked at how much different the course was from the first couple laps.
Yeah, I think I fell like 7 times on my butt trying to run, like just sliding in mud. And I got to the point where I was like, I don't want to hurt myself, so I slowed down on the run because I just didn't want to. And there wasn't a lot of water on the back half of the course. So, and no like I know they normally don't, but all that was on the course was water. So no electrolyte, no nothing. It was just water. And so I think that by the time I got to Skull Valley, I just remember being cold, super hungry, and exhausted and dehydrated.
Mm.
You know, so I just think that it would be interesting if they switched up, because I've always been in the last wave. So you wonder sometimes if they switched up the order, if it would change things around a little bit and give, I hate to say that, you know, your Masters female are a little bit weaker because I'm trying so hard to prove that not true. And same thing with your Masters men, like give them more of a better start time. Would it change their rate of success? I don't know. You know?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, physiologically, the older females are going to be weaker. Like that's,
Right.
it's just that's physiologically what happens.
Well, and you have to make.
I think the idea
for John Albin,
right,
and Brian Atkins, and all of them, and we run the exact same course. So I always say it's a world championship course. You shouldn't be worried about the failure rate.
yeah.
You know, so, but
It's always a tough question because one person's too hard, it's gonna be the next person's too easy, right? And then the other person's just right. You know, I think they put the younger age groups at the beginning because the idea is to get them on and off the course faster, because typically they'll be running faster,
Right.
so that it allows you to clear people through the course versus sending the older people first, and now you have maybe some backups at lines that you shouldn't have had.
Well, I can
if
tell you,
reverse the order.
Doug, did you have backups?
When I got to Skull Valley, there was a huge crowd of people there, and I just kind of observed as I ran up to it that a few people were just kind of standing there, like, wringing their hands, and I just basically went to the front and said, do you mind if I give it a shot? And I just went on through. So I think that the retry lane was just overflowing, and people were just starting to try it every lane. But other than that, there wasn't I don't remember any major backlogs anywhere else.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I think that was a pretty thorough recap of OCRWC. I know you guys went on vacation afterwards. For those of us that are going to be traveling next year, did you like going on vacation afterwards now that your race was over, or would you recommend going on vacation maybe before, or maybe just going to the race and coming back? What are your thoughts on that?
Doug, you want to take it?
I like the idea of going on vacation afterwards. I mean, it was kind of like the reward for putting in the work, and there was just a sense of relief. Okay, the race is done, the pressure's off. Now we can just go on vacation and just don't have to worry about the clock so much and being any place in particular times.
Well, and we went up into the Alps, and we did a lot of hiking and things like that. And I think that if we would have gone before, you would have to be a little bit more mindful to the fact that you're racing, and your training routine and everything like that. And so I don't know, I think I liked vacationing afterwards because I felt like we could just do whatever we want. We don't have to worry about nutrition. We don't have to worry about, that kind of stuff. We could just enjoy being on vacation. And as far as just going out racing and coming back, I mean, if you're from that area, it makes sense. Kind of like for us going to Canada, we went to Canada, we came back. I didn't go see Niagara Falls again. I didn't do that. But if you've never been to Europe, I can say that once you're in Europe, once you're in England, it's fairly inexpensive to travel.
Yeah, the initial investment is the plane ticket over there. That's correct. The expensive part.
And so, and we make a joke that I'm not a London lover, but I'm not a city person. I much prefer the country. So if all we would have done is gone over to London and come back, I would have been okay, versus the fact that we went up into the Alps and we got to see all the ruins and everything. That absolutely made me go, oh, I'm in love. So I think that brings a whole new component, especially if, you're not this big city person or, and London is London. London's a big city. It's cool. I mean, it's really neat, but it's still city and it's still a lot of traffic and things like that. So, and there's I know everybody, it's funny to see the posts from the U.S. people. They scattered. I mean, we went everywhere. People were all over the place, so it was pretty neat.
Yeah, I concur with the go on vacation after the race. I've done a couple of races overseas, Australia, UK, Lebanon, and I like once the race is over, you like you said, you just kind of go wherever the wind takes you, and I walk a lot during my vacation, so I'll go to a lot of museums, but we end up walking a lot in between them. Yeah. So like you said, you don't want to tire yourself out or be worried about what you're eating right before the major event. So,
right.
Strongly concur there. And then if I'm there a couple days early, all I'm thinking about is the race. I'm like, all right, what I gotta.
That's exactly it. And I think once the race was done, our minds were straight went to vacation mode. It's time to party now. So. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, couple final questions. We didn't get to hear that much from Doug for the episode, so we may have to bring him on again in the future.
I know.
But before we let you guys go, quick, what's it like dating another top-level athlete, and then kind of, how's the long-distance relationship working out for, maybe some other OCR lovers that happen to meet on a different podium or, at the beer tent and are trying to work out their OCR love life.
OCR life. All right, you can go. This is you.
Oh, okay. I gotta talk careful here. So the long distance thing, I've never tried that before, and Lisa, I don't think you had either, right?
No, I had.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
I'll speak for myself. Well, it just you cherish the time that you're physically together, and in the last year, that's often been at races here and there, we travel from our separate points and meet up at the race, and then sometimes have an extra day or whatever. But it takes some discipline to make it work, and to realize that talking on the phone is the only way to communicate without seeing face to face and seeing your expressions and everything. But it's definitely a cool angle to adventure, because when you do meet up at the race, of course you've prepared for the race and you're super excited for the race, but then I'm super excited to see Lisa, and then I think that energy is actually synergistic, and it builds, and it may well be helping our racing careers.
So what he's saying is we're going to stay long distance so he's racing better.
It's good to have priorities. Priorities are important.
I knew I couldn't say anything right.
But what he's missing is we also have we're completely honest with each other. And we went into it saying that we're very open about everything. So if you misconstrued, because it's a lot of texting, it is a lot of phone calls, but I think it's a lot of texting and communicating that way. And so making sure that you're very careful about not misconstruing something that comes through and taking things personal, but then very open communication. And I think we do a really good job at still feeling like we have the day-to-day. We share a calendar, and so if there's stuff going on with the kids and things like that, I know because it's on the calendar. So you still feel that I know what you're up to every day, kind of idea,
Oh, that's a good idea. I like that.
Mm-hmm. And then we also make sure, I told him, that every time we see each other can't be a race trip. Otherwise, it just becomes about racing and not about the relationship. And so we're also very careful that, it's hard during peak race season, but now during off-race season, it'll be, less. And then, there's races that he'll go to that I don't go to, and there's races that I've gone to that he doesn't go to. So remaining that independence is still okay. And it's funny, if he's racing, I can't leave my phone. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? And normally Doug will go to Spartan races and I don't. And Spartan races is great because I can just pull up Chronotrack and track him. So I tend to know how he's finished before he does. So I'll, automatically hey, good job, kind of thing. So it's definitely different. And it's funny because we also train very different than one another. And so when I'm visiting him, it's more rock climbing and ninja and more road running for me. And then when he's up visiting me, it's more weightlifting and trail running on hills. So it's pretty funny. So I always say, where the big race is by who's going to whose house. So.
Right.
Good answer. Good answer. Yeah. I like it. Okay, since we have 3 people on the podcast, I didn't prep you with this question, so you're going to have to think on the fly. Say one thing people would be surprised to know about you, and whoever's ready can go first, and we will share, and then we will give a final shout-out to some sponsors and friends, and then we will wrap it up here. So, who wants to go?
I can go. I think people will be surprised to know I didn't do any kind of sports stuff in high school or college, and that I didn't get involved in running or anything competitive until well after college.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lisa, you're up.
What people don't know about me. That one's hard, actually, because I'm pretty much an open book. I don't know that many people know that I have pretty severe asthma. And I'm allergic to albuterol, which is the main component in an inhaler. So I have to learn to run managing my asthma naturally.
Oh, interesting.
So no medication, no nothing. So a lot of times when I'm running and people are like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just can't breathe." So, that's something that's newer.
All right, so since Doug went with like a throwback fact, I'll go with one for myself. So in high school, I used to act in plays and musicals. So I've been in like 6 different musicals and 5 different plays.
Please tell me there's videos.
They are on a VHS cassettes, and I do have a VHS player, which you cannot get from me. So no, you cannot see them.
Right.
But yeah, so let's see. For musicals, I was in Wizard of Oz, Guys and Dolls, Sound of Music, Anything Goes. What else? I don't know.
Oh, this is even better.
It's pretty good.
That's awesome.
That's excellent.
The best one was my senior year. I was Friedrich from Sound of Music, so like one of the little kids, because I'm short, and like my best friend was my dad in the play, which was really funny. We had a good time.
That's cool.
So
that's really cool.
I actually wasn't that crazy about like acting. I was like, all right, yeah, it's kind of fun, but the kind of like OCR, it was like the people that made it really good. Like I honestly, when I went to like auditions, I almost didn't care what part I got. I just wanted to hang out with those people. We just had a good time. So
that's amazing.
Good place to pick up chicks too. Not that many.
Yeah, that's my goal too.
Yeah.
Not really.
Oh.
So that's funny.
Final shout outs, friends, family, sponsors, whatever you want. Doug, you're up first.
Okay. Well, shout out to Lisa for pushing me and believing in me and giving me a lot of confidence when I have some doubts on different things. And my kids for tolerating me disappearing for weekends or now 10 days in a chunk. They've learned how to manage the household without me. I'd like to give a shout out to Elite Ops because I've been using their product for a number of years, and Ray's been a real good friend to me for a long time.
You got a code for a discount for them?
No.
Okay, I do then. I'm going to give you my
Yeah.
So SS10 gives you 10% off. So that's SS10.
Excellent. And I guess that's about it for shout outs.
Lisa, you're up.
All right. Well, I have to definitely thank my jobs. I work as a gymnastics coach, and I also am a personal trainer, and both gave me the freedom to be able to take almost 2 weeks off of work, which is pretty amazing, especially in both of those fields. So I want to thank Gymfinity and Hybrid both definitely for allowing me to travel this year as much as I did. And then as far as sponsors, I really have to thank Ofos because I didn't realize how much I wear these shoes. And so we, pulled pictures, and I live in these shoes. And if you don't have a pair of these things, you probably need to go buy them because I've done rock climbing. They've been to the beach. I mean, these poor shoes are more worn than anything. I wear my tennis shoe kind of ones to all my gymnastics meets, and my feet no longer hurt. So they're amazing. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah, the UFO shoes are insanely comfortable. When I finished Endure the Gauntlet, I walking anywhere hurt, and I actually kept my shoes on when I was in the house because it was the only way I could walk semi-normal through the house. Because walking barefoot on like a hardwood floor was hurting too much. So
yeah.
Especially if you're an endurance athlete or like a Toughest Mudder, World's Toughest, Ultra Beast kind of person, I mean, they are next level comfortable. Like, if you don't have one, you're living in the past, right? Like, you need to stop. Right. You need to get out of 1990 and catch up with 2018. And then even if you're a short course athlete, I mean, like Lisa said, super comfortable. So check them out.
Oh yeah, I train and put them on. And I'm on my feet all day long, and so I just I'm constantly in my shoes. So I love them.
All right, I'm just going to give a quick shout out to the Conquer the Gauntlet Pro Team. Got a lot of good stuff coming from our Facebook page, so make sure you go check that out. And then go check out www.ctgproteam.com. Got some discount codes on there. again, now that it's coming into the off season, we're gonna update it a lot more because we have a lot more free time to do things like that. So check out that for a lot of great videos and content and training videos and workout videos, and there's a lot of good stuff on there. You know, if you want to see what TV shows we've been on and what books we've been in and articles we've been in and stuff like that, there's a lot of really cool stuff there. So definitely check it out. Some codes for a lot of our sponsors too, and again, the sponsors we have are the people who are supporting the sport of OCR. So, you know, when you're looking to buy products, you know, preferably give your money to them as opposed to someone else who has invested absolutely nothing into the sport. So, yeah. Check them out. All right, we're going to wrap it up. We've been talking for way too long. Guys, thanks for coming on. Doug, we'll bring you back on at a later point and talk to you a little bit more without Lisa.
Yeah. Because he's super interesting.
Then
You
I can
have to make him talk.
talk.
Yes. I won't overwhelm him then.
All right, we'll catch you guys later.
All right,
All right.
thanks, Evan.